So why do we document? We document to remember what? Why do we document as teachers? To remember what? Have we talked, do we have great memories as teachers? No. So what do we want to remember? What's important to remember in our classroom? What happened that day? Important things like what? Be specific. What do we want to remember? Huh? The child's behavior. What were challenges? What were antecedents? What were consequences to those behaviors? What else? Improvement. So what their strengths were, how they've grown developmentally. Think in specific developmental domains. Their social and emotional development, their cognitive development, their linguistic development. So it's to remember what they're capable of. To make visible children's ways of learning. Do children learn in different ways? Mm-hmm. And so to really make that visible, what could the teacher do? Document. If you see a teacher or a child who learns best by moving their body, how could a teacher help the parents to see that, or the director to see that, or their co-teachers to see that? By providing documentation that provides those examples. To revisit in reflection with others to better understand learning and to better plan for how we teach. One of the philosophies that came from the Italian approach is this concept of co-inquiry. And co-inquiry is actually teachers reflecting with one another on their documentation. And I had the privilege of working over at Fresno State at the Huggins Early Education Center, and every week that's what we would do. We would have the opportunity to bring our documentation from that week and sit around in a circle and share with our co-teachers, this is what I'm seeing the children in my classroom doing. This is what I'm going to offer next. This is where I'm thinking we're going to go with this project. And to get an outside viewpoint of teachers that weren't in your classroom to suggest, why don't you try this? Or you know what, I'm looking at this documentation that you've provided me and I see something totally different. Because remember, when we take a look at documentation, are we pretty subjective in what we see? Even if we try to be as objective as possible, are our own personal bias entering into how we see something? Yes. So we document to help reflect back on the work we do as teachers so that our co-teachers can tell us, or our directors or our mentors, whoever it could be, to say, you know what, let's look at this a different way. To hold children's discovery for them and return it to them to continue their inquiry. This is probably one of my favorite forms of documentation, or ways that we document. We document so children can think about their learning. So teachers use documentation to think about their learning, but children are capable of looking at their documentation and saying, oh, remember when I tried to do this? Remember when I did that? How many of you have been with a child that'll see a picture of themselves and tell you the whole story about what happened in that picture? Have you ever done that? They love to do that. They can tell you every single thing that happened. And then she said this, and then she said that, and she said that. She had a pink bow in her hair. You know, half of it's probably not accurate, but they're discovering what they learned. And so the next time they're offering, if they have pictures of them discovering worms and they're telling you everything they did, the next time they have worms, that experience is fresh in their mind, and they will have the opportunity to further that investigation. So it gives them the opportunity to revisit their experiences. One of the tough parts sometimes of being a teacher is deciding which strategies of documentation you want to use. There are a lot of different methods to document children's learning. And so whichever strategy we choose to do, we have to understand that because of our choice in documentation, we are leaving some information out. So we have to figure out what is the best fit for the documentation that we've chosen. We live in an age where technology is very abundant and pretty easy to utilize, so we have more choices than we ever had before. When I was in the teacher, digital cameras were just becoming the thing, and it was so cool because we could create different types of documentation. So we have video cameras and still cameras, audio recorders, Palm Pilots. It's probably totally non-existent to you guys anymore, but they were actually little tablets that you would hold in your hands. They were cool little things. The original smartphones. Computers, notebooks, Post-it notes, calendars, scanners, printers. All of those can be utilized to document children's learning. One of the things that teachers don't realize a lot is the use of scanners. Do children produce a lot of artwork, especially if you have a child that's their language of learning, that they love to paint, they love to draw, they love to produce different types of work. And it's hard to put all of that in a child's portfolio. So one of the things that teachers can do is actually scan that work in and have just a digital copy of that artwork. You don't have to keep the actual painting, but you can just have a scanned copy of it. So those are some excellent ways. Calendars. How do you think calendars could help document a child's learning? So how would they do that? How would a teacher utilize a calendar to show that they accomplished a goal? Exactly. I utilized this strategy when I had kids because I don't keep baby books. I wish I had a good excuse. I just don't. I'm lazy. But I had a calendar in my kids' rooms, and so every time they did some sort of milestone, I just wrote it on that calendar right there, and that's their baby book. It's just that calendar. That's how I documented their learning. When they said a word, I'd go and write it on the calendar. When they did something, go write it on the calendar. And that's the same thing that teachers can do. If they document one thing about each child really quick on the calendar in their office, and that's a good gateway to get them to document frequently, then that's what it is. Okay, so there's lots of different strategies that we can use to document.